Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah, time to our public meeting here. We'll start out with roll call.
Cross.
Here.
Licio.
Here.
Tabit.
Here.
Ward. Olson.
Here. Just to give, for those of you that are listening and haven't seen the agenda, just a brief overview of what is going to happen. We'll start out with the presentation of the mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvement project. I'll have that presentation done by our contract engineer. And then next would be questions from the city council about the hearing to the engineers. And then we will open the public hearing. And at the point that we open the public hearing, that's when we would entertain questions, comments, try to answer your questions at that point. So that's kind of the sequence of events. So we will start with the presentation. Eric?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My name is Eric Welch. I'm an engineer with Widset Smith Nolting. Tonight we have the improvement hearing for the 2021 mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvements project. We're going to go through the project history, the public improvement process, existing conditions, proposed improvements, assessment procedures and calculations, project schedule. We got a little bit in the end about project or property owner information. And then, like we discussed, there'll be time for questions at the end of the presentation. So a little bit about the project history. Back in 2013, the city of Baxter commissioned a pavement management plan, and that was to address the need of maintenance of the 85.5 miles of streets in the city. And it was initiated because of the aging streets and the associated need for increased maintenance. There were basically 4 objectives of that study. The first was to develop a plan to preserve and improve the quality of the city streets in a fiscally responsible manner. It was also to develop a plan that would consider both immediate and long-term needs and develop a plan that was systematic in the evaluation of sustainable funding. And then just to provide for better communication with the public and a tool for decision-making for the city and the council. The plan did recommend dramatically increasing the maintenance budget for streets that were in a decent condition. And they started by targeting preservation improvements using a seal coating program. That was done for many years, again, just trying to do maintenance on the streets to make them last longer. And again, the thought behind that was that preventative maintenance would save property owners in the city in the future on more frequent reconstruction costs. The plan also recognized franchise fees and assessments as a tool that the city could use to finance these projects. This is a little excerpt out of that pavement management plan that kind of explains the typical pavement life cycle. On the left-hand side, we have the condition of the pavement. 10 would be a brand new roadway in excellent condition. 0 would be pretty much a failed roadway. This curve or line kind of represents the life cycle of the pavement. As you start out, you got a brand new roadway. The condition is 10, it's in excellent condition. But over time, it starts to drop off. You get to that 15 to 20 years, and that's where we really see a lot of drop off in the pavement condition. And that's when we start having issues. Right now, when you look at Isle Drive and College Road, we're in this area right here. We're about 20 years out, and the condition of the roadway, as measured by the PACER system, which is the city's the system that the city uses to evaluate the pavement condition, we're in this area where we're really looking at a mill and overlay or a full depth reclamation project. Another thing I want to point out is just that, as this pavement deteriorates, we get into fixes or reconstruction that ends up costing more. We want to try to keep the roadway up in this area as much as possible, which is kind of shown by this next graph. The goal of the plan is to extend the life of the pavement using lower maintenance costs, such as seal coating or the city is looking at other options now too for maintenance on the roadways, maybe possibly doing micro surfacing or something like that to extend the life of the pavement. And the thought behind that, again, this is kind of the same graph. You have your curve, the pavement deteriorating, and you want to do those maintenance activities before it gets too far along down the road. So for instance, if you're here, you want to do some type of maintenance activity like a seal coat or microsurfacing, which would bring that pavement back up to its original or close to original condition. And that's a lot lower cost. You can do that several times for a lot less than doing a full mill and overlay or full depth reclamation project and really extend the life of that pavement. If you don't do that, the pavement deteriorates. It gets to a point where you got to do something like a mill and overlay or full depth reclamation to bring it back up to new condition, and then you just keep doing that cycle. And again, that just ends up costing more money over the life of the project. Doesn't necessarily apply to this project. You know, we're beyond the point of doing any maintenance on these roadways that's going to extend their life. We're really looking at doing a mill and overlay and a full depth reclamation improvement project. Here's another excerpt out of that pavement management plan, and it just illustrates the different costs for maintenance versus reconstruction. You can see a seal coat is about $9 to $7 per foot, depending on the width of the roadway. Mill and overlay, that's when you start getting into some of the reconstruction, significantly more expensive than maintenance. And then the cost just increased from there, going to a full depth reclamation. And the most expensive project, obviously, is a full depth reconstruction of the roadway. The city did adopt franchise fees to help fund some of these street or pavement management and street lighting activities. The council determined the establishment of that fee was an equitable means of generating the necessary funding for these projects. The fee is assessed to utility providers for use of the right of way, but it's typically passed on to the utility customers. It's used in over 65 Minnesota cities, and it's a common alternative to taxes for funding maintenance projects. There's basically 4 sources of funding that the city uses for street projects like this. The first is property tax. That's typically used for maintenance activities like crack sealing, snow plowing, pavement marking, shouldering, pothole repair, and signs. Then there's local option sales tax. It's a good source of revenue for the city, but it can only be used for safety improvements and not maintenance activities. Then the franchise fees, which we just talked about, can be used for pavement management and street lights. And then the last one is special assessments, benefiting property owners abutting the projects, and that's used for mill and overlay, full depth reclamation, street reconstruction, and new reconstruction or new construction. So this is an assessment project, and the city has to follow a certain steps as part of that project. The first is to prepare a feasibility report that has been prepared and accepted by the city council. That was accepted last month. The next step in the process is the improvement hearing, and that's basically where we go through or present the findings of the feasibility report. We'll go through the existing conditions, proposed improvements, the estimated costs, and then the breakdown and the funding for the project, including assessment calculations. And it's also an opportunity for property owners to give their input to the council. The council will then either decide to authorize or reject the project. It's currently on the council agenda for next Monday night to order the project. There's a resolution on the agenda for that. If they do go ahead with the project will be bid. They'll hold the final assessment hearing. They'll award the contract to a construction contractor, and then the project will be constructed. And I have a little bit more about the schedule later on in the presentation. So getting into the project areas, they're kind of scattered all over town. The first projects are the street projects, and that includes Isle Drive from just west of the Essentia Clinic all the way up to Glory Road, and then College Road from just east of the roundabout all the way to County Road 48. City's also looking at doing some improvements to the median on Glory Road between Elder Drive and Trunk Highway 371. Street lighting improvements at Trunk Highway 210 and Meredith Drive, and Trunk Highway 210 and Memorywood Drive. And then the last project area is some improvements to the Paris Road trailhead. That's kind of the entrance into the city on the south end by the Mississippi Bridge to the Paul Bunyan Trail. Getting into the existing conditions, this is a table out of the report. Isle Drive was constructed back in 1999, so it's over 20 years old. As part of the project, we go back and look at the record drawings and see how much existing bituminous and aggregate base or gravel is underneath the pavement. As you can see in the table, we do that by looking at the record drawings. We also go out there and do coring studies and some ground penetrating radar. So those values are listed there. And what we find is that we don't have enough gravel and bituminous on the roadway to make a 10-ton roadway, which is the standard for the city of Baxter in a commercial area. A 10-ton roadway is an all-season roadway that can handle lots of traffic. There's no weight restrictions. So that's what the city is trying to get in all their commercial roadways. The roadway is 44 feet, and it also had a PACER rating of 6 back in 2019. That's likely gone down. Isle Drive is seeing a lot of issues with problems in the surface of the pavement. It was seal coated in 2015, and that has resulted in some stripping of the top layer of the bituminous, so it's really deteriorating quickly. College Road is kind of split into two project areas. The west half of the project area is proposed to get full depth reclamation, and again, just doesn't quite have the section needed for a 10-ton design. It was constructed in 2000 and it's 65 feet wide. And the condition was listed as a 4 back in 2019, which it's in pretty rough shape. And then the east half of College Road was constructed in 2012. It's got okay depths for aggregate base and class 5, and the roadway width is 65 feet. It actually gets a little bit wider towards the east end as you approach County Road 48 with the turn lanes. And the condition was a little bit better as a 5, so that is proposed to get mill and overlay. Getting in the existing conditions, these are the plan sheets from the plan that show the existing conditions and the removals. I'm not going to go through too much on these other than to just point out that we're pretty much taking out all of the surface improvements between the right-of-way lines. This is at the very west end of the College Road project area. You can see we're taking out part of the trail here for some storm sewer improvements, which I'll go over later. And then you have the roadway and trail improvements starting just east of the roundabout, which is basically the end of the College Road project, or excuse me, Cypress Drive project. So we're taking out the roadway using full depth reclamation, which I'll go over later as well. I'm taking out all of the curb and gutter. The curb and gutter on College Road in this section is in really poor shape and needs to be replaced. We've learned from past projects that this is the time to update and replace the trail. We've had issues on projects trying to keep the trail in place when we're doing this type of project, so we are taking out the trail and replacing it. And one of the reasons that we're doing that also is that these ped ramps at the intersections of the roadways and driveways on the south side of College Road do not meet current ADA standards. The city did a study back in 2017 where we went out and measured all these ped ramps, and these just don't pass the current standard for those ped ramps. Continuing east on College Road, past Conifer Drive to about this location is where we transition from a full depth reclamation project into a mill and overlay project. So from this point all the way to County Road 48, it'll be a mill and overlay project. The curb and gutter will stay. It's in pretty good condition, but there will be some spot removals of curb and gutter to replace some storm drainage castings in the curb line. And again, the entire trails planned on coming out and being replaced, and then the ped ramps at County Road 48. And then getting in the existing conditions and removals on Isle Drive. This is the beginning of the project, just west of the Essentia Health Clinic. This is the start of the project that continues to the south to the roundabout in 2015. So we're, again, pretty much taking out all surface improvements in the right-of-way line. We're taking out these bus pullout areas. Those are coming out as well. All the driveways will be taken out to the right-of-way line. We do that for a couple reasons. One is, we have to take them out on the south side of the road because of the trail improvements. And on the north side of the road, sometimes we do adjust the profile on the road to correct drainage issues. And just to make that all match in, we pretty much have to take everything back out to the right-of-way line. As we continue to the east, we are proposing to keep some of the curb on the north side of the road east of Falcon Drive. That was constructed in 2014. It's in okay shape. We'll try to save it if we can, but again, we might have to do some corrections in the profile, and we may end up pulling out that curb later on. We'll just have to see how it goes, where we're at when we get everything pulled out. Continuing to the east and starting to head north on the curve, there's a stormwater pond, and Walmart sits here. Again, just pulling out everything in the right-of-way line, or in between the right-of-way lines. Continuing north, this would be the west entrance into Walmart. Again, pulling out everything to the right-of-way line. And then the project ends just south of Glory Road. So for the proposed improvements on Isle Drive, you can see the traffic counts on these roadways. These are some of the busiest roadways in town. And we are proposing to bring these up to a 10-ton design standard. And the current 10-ton design in the city of Baxter is 6 inches of bituminous and 6 inches of aggregate base. In this case, we're using, excuse me, full depth reclamation, which I'll show you on the next slide. But we're basically going to grind up the existing bituminous and aggregate base to make a new base for the pavement. I'll just skip ahead here. So this will be the process that we're going to use on these roadways. This is a reclaimer, and it comes through. It's got a drum with teeth on it. It's just going to grind up that pavement into the base underneath and make one homogeneous layer of basically gravel. It ends up being a really good base for paving on later on. But we will have excess reclaimed material that they'll have to pull out before they do the bituminous paving. But kind of the phasing on this would be the FDR or the reclaiming. It's a fairly quick process. It'll take about, I wouldn't say, 2 to 3 days to reclaim both Isle Drive and College Road. It goes fairly quickly. And then it basically turns into a gravel road after that. They'll then come in and do all the removals on the curb and gutter, on the driveways, and start putting everything back together. Just going through some of the improvements on College Road. Again, replacing the trail in this area for storm sewer improvements, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Starting the improvements in this area. So the kind of the color coding on here is orange is kind of the FDR portion of the project. That's where we're grinding up the roadway and repaving. Red is replacement of the curb and gutter and all concrete pavement, including the ped ramps at the intersections. And then the magenta is the trail construction or reconstruction. Just continuing to the east again, you can see the blue color would be bituminous driveway replacement. A couple other things to note is there is some utility work on here where we're actually, just raising castings, replacing castings, replacing all the storm sewer castings, some of the other miscellaneous work that's going on. Just east of Cypress or Conifer Drive, we get into the mill and overlay section, and that's the yellow color on this drawing. We'll be milling out 2 inches of pavement and then putting back 2.5 inches of pavement, again, to try to thicken up that section for a 10-ton design. This drawing shows an extension of an existing storm sewer force main. As part of the Cypress Drive project, there was a storm sewer lift station installed on the east side of Cypress, just south of Industrial Park Road. And that pumps water out of those the existing stormwater basin, and then there was a new basin constructed on the west side of the road. And it pumps it down Cypress to this location right here, where it ties into this gravity storm sewer system that heads east into the pond on the south side of College Road. What we're finding is that there's some issues when we're pumping the same time there's a storm, there's capacity issues in the stormwater pipe. And what happens is the water kind of wraps itself around and starts heading north again. So it's kind of recycling. To fix that, we're planning on extending that force main to the east. We have the opportunity to do that now with the curb and gutter out. We're going to directional drill a new line in all the way along College Road into this existing stormwater basin to correct that issue. Another part of the project is to clean out that existing stormwater basin on College Road. Again, that was constructed, back in 2000. I don't think there's been any maintenance on there at all. And over time, sediment just deposits at the end of these storm sewer inlets. All that sediment from the roadway just ends up at the bottom of the basin. There's quite a bit of an erosion at the bottom of this one too. So just going to go in there, clean up the sediment that's washed in there, kind of regrade everything and then seed it back. On Isle Drive, again, that project starts just west of the Essential Health Clinic. Same color coding on here. Orange would be FDR. Red is new concrete pavement or curb and gutter, and magenta is the bituminous trail. You'll notice that the city is proposing to take out those bus turnouts. They are not in the current plan and will not be placed back in at this time. Continue to the east, you can see again the blue color. All the driveways will be replaced to the right-of-way line. Trail and roadway improvements continue around the corner to the north, all the way up to Isle Drive. Glory Road. There's also a stormwater basin on that curve on Isle Drive that is also going to be cleaned out. Again, you can see the hatched area on here is the area that will be regraded back to its original elevation. Next project area is Glory Road and the median. It's shown by this red color here. It was originally constructed with just class 5 or gravel between the curb and gutter. It's since kind of maybe silted in. There's turf that's grown in there. It's kind of a maintenance nightmare for city staff. First they have to access this median to maintain it with all the traffic on Glory Road. And that just creates safety issues. Staff are concerned about mowing it and throwing rocks into cars and stuff like that. So the city was looking at doing improvements to the median. We looked at different alternatives. We looked at doing like low maintenance vegetation in the median, but that still requires maintenance. So there's still a safety issue. We don't have irrigation out to that area. So we did decide to go with 4-inch concrete median just poured between the curb and gutter. And then there are 2 signs that need to be replaced as well. The next project area is a Trunk Highway 210 street lighting project. This kind of started back in 2019 with the Memorywood Drive project. As part of the hearings for that project, there were a lot of people that expressed concern with the safety at the intersection of Trunk Highway 210 and Memorywood Drive. So as part of that, or after that project, the city started looking at funding streetlights for that project. They did make an application to the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and that was approved. And MnDOT is going to help fund streetlights at Meredith Drive and Memorywood Drive. So this is the layout at Memorywood Drive. 6 lights total, 3 lights in the eastbound direction, and then 3 lights in the westbound direction. And then pretty much the same layout at Memorywood Drive as well. And then the last project area is the Paris Road Trailhead. City's looking at doing improvements at this Paul Bunyan Trail entrance into the city on the south end of town by the Mississippi River Bridge. They've already completed some of the improvements, including the striping on the Paris Road cul-de-sac, but they're also looking at doing placing boulders, replacing the fence with boulders, a little more aesthetically pleasing than the fence, and then splitting the trail one way each side with placing bollards in this area. And again, the whole idea behind this project, or part of the idea, is to create a nice entrance for the Paul Bunyan Trail, but we're also trying to limit ATV and snowmobile traffic from using this as an access point into the city. So that's why you see the boulders in here and the bollards. They'll be placed just wide enough to meet ADA standards for pedestrians and be safely traversed by bicycles as well. So getting into the project costs, the project areas are basically split up depending on the funding sources. So for full depth reclamation, you can see the costs are split between the roadway, storm sewer, and trail. Mill and inlay is split between the roadway and the trail. Then we have the Glory Road median as a separate cost. Trunk Highway 210 street lighting is a separate cost, and the Paris Road trailhead. So the total estimated project cost is about $2.7 million. And then getting into the project implementation or funding of the projects. So for the full depth reclamation project, in accordance with the Baxter assessment policy, the benefiting commercial properties are assessed 100% of the FDR project costs up to 44 feet in roadway width. So anything over 44 feet, the city will pick up as part of the city costs. On Isle Drive, it is 44 feet wide, so there are no additional roadway costs for the city on Isle. But on College, it's 65 feet wide, so part of the city's cost is for that excess roadway width. City also picks up stormwater force main and pond cleaning, trail improvements, and then city frontage or assessments for the stormwater basins and residential backlots and city outlot on College Road. So they're basically taking an assessment for any property that they own along these roadways. And I can show you a little bit more about that later. I have some slides in here that show the mapping that was used for the assessable distances. And then the remaining project costs are then assessed on a front footage basis. So the total estimated project cost for the full depth reclamation project is about $2.2 million. City cost for the excess roadway width is about $141,000. City storm sewer is about $191,000. City trail is $329,000. Estimated remaining accessible costs are approximately 1.5 million, and the estimated frontage for assessment purposes is $8,587. That comes out to $176.40 per foot. The procedure for calculating assessments for mill and overlay is about the same as the full depth reclamation. 100% of the mill and inlay costs are assessed up to 44 feet in width. City picks up any width in excess of 44 feet, picks up trail improvements, and it also picks up those frontage or assessments for that outlot on the north side of College Road. Remaining costs are assessed on a front footage basis. Total estimated project cost is $253,000. City roadway for excess width is $83,000. City trail is $53,000. Remaining accessible costs are $117,000. Accessible frontage is $1,746, and it comes out to $67.07 per foot for the assessment. For the special city projects, city picks up 100% of the Glory Road median. That's not being assessed. That's $45,000. For the Trunk Highway 210 street lighting improvements, again, estimated project cost is $179,000. City did receive funding through MnDOT for that project. MnDOT's going to contribute 50% of the construction costs, and then construction engineering as well, for a total of $75,330. Remaining city costs for those streetlights are $103,430. And then the last project area, the Paris Road trailhead, estimated at $63,000, and funding for that project is coming out of the Capital Park Fund. So these are the assessment exhibits I was talking about earlier. All the properties shown shaded in the yellow color are proposed to be assessed with this project. The magenta line represent accessible distances for the full depth reclamation project. The blue line represents the accessible distances for the mill and overlay project. Couple things to note on here. This is the city property for the storm water pond. That's the assessment for the city, showing the assessment for the city here. And then the city is also taking an assessment or picking up the cost for the accessible distance along the entire north side of College Road, because of this is residential backlot frontage, which typically isn't assessed to residential properties. And then this is an outlot that's a buffer between the residential area and College Road. So the city is picking up the cost of the roadway assessments on the north side of the road of College, or north side of College Road. On Isle Drive, similar, all the properties that are being assessed are shaded in yellow, and then the magenta line just represents the assessable distances for every property. One thing to note on the assessable distance, it's calculated at the building setback, so it might not, correspond with what you see on a plat or a description of your property. And then this is just the continuation of Isle Drive on the very north end. In the study, there is a sheet that shows estimated individual assessments for every property owner on the project. If you have any questions about these, you can definitely give me a call or send me an email. That contact information is shown later on in the presentation. For the assessment payment, prepayments and partial payments are allowed up to 30 days following the assessment hearing. And then any balance on that assessment will be certified to the county in 2021, with payments to begin on the following year's county tax statement. The assessment balance is amortized over a 12-year assessment term for full-depth reclamation projects and 7-year term for mill and inlay projects. The interest rate will be determined once the bonds are sold, and for future payoff requirements after certification, interest will accrue through the end of the calendar year, and after 2021, payments in full must be made by November 15th to either the City of Baxter or Crow Wing County Auditor to avoid paying the following year's interest. This slide just shows a summary of all the project costs. Again, total estimated project cost is about 2.7 million. Assessments to the benefiting property owners other than the city is about 1.2 million, or about 44% of the project. Funding from MnDOT for that street lighting is about 75,000, or about 3% of the project. And then all the other costs, roadway access width, the frontage assessments, storm sewer, trail, Glory Road median, city costs for the street lighting, Paris Road trailhead, totals about 1.4 million, or about 53% of the project cost. Here's a couple graphs that further kind of break down and show those cost splits graphically. On the top graph, this blue area is special assessments to property owners abutting the project. The orange on the top here is the MnDOT portion of the project. And then basically everything else on the left-hand side of this are city costs. And it just shows the split on how the city is funding this project. About 30% of that project, or 805,000 is coming out of the debt service levy. About 527,000 is coming from the sales tax, $45,000 from the stormwater fund, and about $63,000 from the park dedication fund. And then on the bottom, you can see how all the funding is being used. The blue again here is about 1.9 million, or 70% of the project is going for street improvements. 7% of the project is going for stormwater improvements, 14% for trail improvements, 7% for street lighting, and then 2% for other. And a little bit about the project schedule. Again, like I said before, the feasibility report has already been approved. Plans and specifications have been prepared. The city is actually advertising for bids right now. Feasibility study was approved by the Utilities Commission and City Council on March 21st. Council adopted the resolution approving plans and specifications and authorizing advertising for bids in March as well. The improvement hearing is what we're holding tonight on April 1st. Bids are going to be received in April. The council, like I said before, will also look at ordering the improvement by resolution in April, and that is set for next Tuesday, April 6th. After that, I don't have specific dates in here, but the next step would be that the city council would pass a resolution ordering the assessment hearing. We'd be holding the assessment hearing likely in May. The council would then pass a resolution adopting the assessment role. That would also be in May. Council will then award the construction contract, likely in June. And then we would hold a public informational meeting. Once we know who the contractor is, we put together a presentation with contact information, more specific information about the project and construction phasing like that. And we hold a public informational meeting. Again, that's likely towards the end of June. And then construction would start in July, probably shortly after the 4th, and then likely go through most of September. Just some property owner information that we kind of like to talk about with these projects. There's going to be delays, dust, and detours as part of this project. That should be expected. Excuse me. College Road will be detoured and closed to all traffic. The nice thing about College Road is there's no direct access to properties off of College, so we can just close College Road off and get that project done fairly quickly. Isle Drive is a different story. There's a lot of businesses that need access directly off of Isle Drive, so it will be detoured, but it will be open to local traffic. And we'll have to work with property owners and businesses along Isle to make sure that we keep access at all times. We are utilizing high early concrete on this project, so we'll try to time doing those driveway entrances to match with, when businesses aren't open, do it over the weekend, things like that. There's different things we can do to try to keep that access open at all times. There may be disruption in utility services. This may be disruption from city utilities like sewer and water, or maybe private utilities as well. A lot of times we run into issues with cutting service lines, or we find issues with the municipal services that we have to fix as part of the project. So for instance, the water main maybe need to be shut down for a couple hours to do some work on the water main or service. All entrances and driveways are scheduled to be replaced to the right-of-way line. I think we covered that. One thing we wanted to talk about, start talking about on these projects was when we do cut the driveway back to the right-of-way line, there's going to be a construction joint in that bituminous driveway. And it's a good idea for property owners to seal up that joint on a yearly basis. The city, goes through and does their crack sealing program every year, but that's only on the roadway itself. We don't go back onto that, past the right of way and seal coat any joints located in the driveway. So that would be the property owner's responsibility. There may be times when your property may not be accessible by vehicle. Again, we realize that we got to keep access open as much as we can. So like I said, we'll work with you. We'll work with the contractor to try to keep as many entrances open as we can and try to do that work as quickly as possible on the driveways to get that people in and out. Mailbox supports will be replaced with swingway style supports. That's kind of a standard in the city of Baxter. Anytime the city is doing a reconstruction project, which includes full depth reclamation, we do replace the mailbox supports. And then property owners are responsible for relocating private items located in the right-of-way. That would include, the big one is sprinkler systems. They're usually located right behind the curb, and they will definitely get damaged when we're doing the curb and gutter removal. So we do ask property owners to relocate those until after the project is complete and then put them back in. When the city has to do that work, it just increases the project cost and then the assessments as well. And then the city will not be responsible for any damage to private items located in the right of way. Again, if you have any, private signs or anything else located in the right of way line, those would be your responsibility to relocate and then put back after the project is done. This slide just shows some of the contact information for the project. If you have any questions on the project other than financial or assessment questions, by all means, give me a call or send me an email and I will address those questions. Otherwise, if it's a financial or assessment related question, you should contact the city for those answers. And then with this hearing as well, like I said before, it's the public's chance to give input on this project, but the council will take input on this project. You can call a council member, call the city, or you can write a letter and submit that prior to the meeting, 7 o'clock meeting on Tuesday night, April 6th. And with that, my presentation is done, and I will turn it back to the council for questions.
Okay, council, at this point, it's an opportunity for council members to, a lot of information there. Council questions from us first. Anybody want any more detail or have questions about what we've just covered so far? I can't see everybody, so you need to holler out if you. All right, then at that, with that information, then we will move on to the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 6:40. And I would just tell people that are in the wings that would like to comment or talk, if you would just raise your hand electronically. Down below, you see the little hand there. And then give our IT people a minute to bring you into the conversation, and we'll take it from there.
I don't see any hands raised at this time, Mayor.
No, I don't either. There are probably people listening also on the YouTube availability there. Just like to reemphasize kind of what Eric said too, that if you have watched this or watch it again and some questions come up, or you have some things you want to talk about, give staff a call, give any of us a call between now and next Tuesday, and you'll certainly have a chance to be heard. Trevor?
I have two questions, Mayor.
Yeah.
One question I have is I heard both terminologies tonight of mill and overlay and mill and inlay. What is the difference, Eric?
Yeah, mill and inlay, it would be the correct terminology for when you have curb and gutter. We're milling out 2 inches, below the lip of the gutter, and then inlaying 2.5 inches of bituminous. You would typically use mill and overlay for a roadway that does not have curb and gutter.
So really no difference between the two.
No, they're pretty much the same process. Yep.
Then the other thing I wanted to put on the record is to make sure that we're thinking about the surgical center. The last time when we did Falcon Drive, we had issues with the scheduled surgeries because of the vibration. They cannot have the vibration, the compaction going on the road at the same time as doing the surgery. So that has to be a scheduling issue between our contractor and the surgical center.
Good point. Good point. Anybody else?
See, the only other attendant is Matthew Seymour, and he must be shy tonight. Matthew usually. But Matthew, you can sure call us, call Eric or I if you have any questions at all on this project.
Okay, the next agenda item then is to close the public hearing. And seeing nothing more to be discussed, I would close it at 6:45. Then we need to talk about the next steps.
Mayor, I have one question, if I might, before we get there.
Yes, sir.
So, a constituent just recently talked to me about some safety issues at Isle Drive and Glory Road, because they live on Glory Road. I'm trying to think. west on Glory Road. They get a lot of traffic down there for people that miss the clinics, miss the surgery center, the Essential Health or whatever. And there's been some close calls, as I understand, at that intersection. I mean, there's two stop signs going north and south, but nothing going east or west. And this person had wondered if we could at least put some signage stating the direction of where the clinics are, so there wouldn't be some confusion there or whatever. Now, I know that we're not talking about signage right now, but I just wanted to bring that up, for further discussion later or during the project or whatever. I don't know if now is the right time or whatever, but I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's a good point. Those comments have been made before, directional signs for all the clinics and whatnot. And I don't know where that ended up. Trevor,
I can answer that, Mayor, City Council. We don't allow any off-premise signs in our city ordinance. What's been asked in the past is to be able to actually place signs on private property for the clinics and the surgical center. And where it's been asked is to put it on either Arnie Johnson's property in the northeast corner of the intersection or the bank-owned property in the southwest corner of the intersection, but it's not allowed by ordinance. We have not looked at any other types of signage. We have put up directional signage in the road right away that are actually owned and maintained by the city, both for Camp Vanasek on Memorywood Drive and Cedar Scenic. And we've also put up signage for the Northland Arboretum on Excelsior Road, but they're the smaller informational signs with the arrows. And that's all we've done in the city. Nobody's ever asked about putting up that type of signs on Glory Road. One problem I will say that we have had, and I still don't know if it's even up to date, is the apps on your phone like Google Maps and stuff. As of last year, still never had Falcon Drive even on there, so you couldn't find McDermott's or Nystrom's facilities on Falcon on Google Maps. And I know that our IT director, Todd DeBoer, has worked many times with these mapping companies to try to get so that our road system is current. There's even some of the apps that don't have the alignment of Cypress, several Jasperwood at the new elementary school. So we have a real big problem with those apps that lead them in the wrong direction. And that's how all the truck drivers, of course, and anybody traveling, that are on vacation or anything like that, they all travel with their GPS systems in their vehicles and their semi trucks. So I know that that's a big problem too. And I know our IT director has tried addressing it many times over the last several years. So that's what I know of the situation to date.
Well, I think it's something that we could revisit again. I've heard it before too. Leave it at that. But what happened there, John, is that what people wanted as a commercial development kept happening. People wanted off-premise signs. Walmart's just ahead, and so to stifle that, or to at least control it, an ordinance was passed that no off-premise signs would be erected for that purpose. In other words, put the sign on your property and whatnot. But then these other things get shot in the crosshairs then along with that. And so it trickles down, and maybe an unintended consequence, I'm not sure, but that's something for us to talk about. So thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else? Well, so the next steps are the council. Brad, you want to fill us in, and the council is going to look at this next Tuesday?
Sure. On the agenda for Tuesday night is for consideration of approval of the moving forward with the improvements, ordering the project. That will then begin the next step in everything, such as receiving the bids and scheduling assessment hearing and starting down that path. But Tuesday night will be on the agenda will be approving the ordering of the improvement, which will require a supermajority, a 4/5 vote. At that time, then we'll go running on the calendar or the schedule that Eric had briefly mentioned and is outlined on, excuse me, on the city's website, along with the PowerPoint presentation that was and project details, which are on the city's website.
Okay. Trevor, the letters that were sent out to people, did they have the, I apologize because I got it too, but was scheduled on there, the sequence of events that Eric just went through tonight, or?
I think it had, no, the letter that went out did not have the project schedule in it. The project schedule though is on our city website. We did say on our city website, the information is there. The feasibility study, the project schedule, the plans, actually the project plans are on our city website. So you can get everything on the city website to the link that was in the notice.
Yeah.
The presentation that was tonight that Eric did is also on there on our city website. And then it should be noted that this recording of this public improvement hearing tonight will be on the YouTube channel, so you can go view it at any time. And then I would also add that we will staff, the project engineer, Eric Welch, or mayor and council, we can take comments on the project right up until 7 o'clock at the next council meeting on April 6th. So if you want to call in or write something in, you've got time yet over the weekend up until next Tuesday to still comment about the improvement hearing. We will take those and we'll make sure that the council sees that before that 7 o'clock meeting on Tuesday night.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ward, second by Alessio. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Cross,
Yes.
Licio,
Yes.
Tabit,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes. And the meeting is adjourned, and have a great evening.